Can everyone hear me? Good morning.
We can, yeah.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning. You know what, Danielle? I need one of your photos. I'm gonna need to like get a stage here.
That's just a selfie. I'm really good at taking selfies.
Yeah, that's like my favorite picture. It's awesome.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good
Morning,
Good
Brad.
morning.
How's everyone doing?
We're doing
Good.
Doing it. Good.
Hey, Mark, you came back.
Oh,
I
I
didn't run you off. I'm thrilled.
couldn't miss it. I even shaved for this one here.
There we go.
That's pretty funny. So, what have you guys been up to?
Me personally, or Dave, or Elise, or
Yeah, I think anybody could jump in there.
are you
I mean, I
asking
don't
an
wanna-
open-ended
I
question, or
don't
like
want
a?
to. I don't.
Do you want
I
a
don't wanna-
high gain answer, or what is it?
I didn't know if everybody was here yet. We have
No,
a
we are
quorum.
waiting for, let's see, we've got Jamie, you're there behind Ganesh. Kelly and Kim is who, oh, no, Kelly's there. We're just waiting for Kim. Should we get going and call the meeting to order?
Good idea.
Okay. I officially call the meeting to order. Today is the 11th of August. We have a lot of things to cover today, and I'd like to start off with the meeting minutes from the July 14th meeting. Were there any requested changes that any of you felt needed to be changed? No changes? Okay, I'd like to get a motion to approve the meeting minutes as is.
Motion to
Okay,
approve.
Jamie, do I have a second?
I second.
And Kelly, okay, all right, thank you so much. At this point in the agenda, we're going to open time for meeting, but before I start that, I just want to go over some of the guidelines here. In accordance with the shelter in place order by the Marin County Health Officer for COVID-19, the town of San Anselmo is not offering an in-person meeting location for the Economic Development Committee. And this meeting is being conducted via webcast and teleconference for conference members, or excuse me, committee members, staff and presenters who will participate in the meeting from their individual remote locations. Public comments will be accepted during the meeting. Members of the public are encouraged to participate remotely via Zoom by clicking on the link that's been provided. And if you are not able to click on the link, you can always call the telephone number 669-900-6833 and enter webinar ID 849-1827-2568. So at this point, I'm going to start off with public expression. The public is welcome to address the commission on matters not on the agenda pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.2. The committee is not permitted to act on any matter not on the agenda unless it's an emergency that exists or the need to take action arose following posting of the agenda. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes, and a spokesperson for an organization is limited to 5 minutes. Unfortunately, from my standpoint, I can't see, I only see a limited number of screens. So is there anybody out there in the public that would like to address the committee?
We only have 2 members from the public in attendance, and neither have their hands raised.
Okay, would any of them like to participate and speak directly or not?
I think they would be indicating that with a raised
Okay,
hand.
great. All right, so let's start off. There's 2 things that we wanted to cover today. One is it's really about strategic planning. And since COVID-19 hit, there's been an incredible demand on the business community. And I thought it would be a good time to kind of take a look at where we are with the committee itself, and review, is there, what we're supposed to be charged with, the purpose, the goals and the objectives, the organization. Do we have the right stakeholders involved? Or do we have the right infrastructure to get done what we're going to need to get done? Because everything that changed, in March and April, everything has changed. So what I'd like to do is start off, I sent to you, and I know that all of you already have these, but I sent them anyway last night, the resolution. So if you can go over it, I'd like to review it. The charge itself is that we're supposed to be working with the business community and identify actions that ensure the business community is successful and meets the needs of the town's residents. The purpose of, and this is from the resolution, the purpose was to really ensure the San Anselmo business community and residential community has a forum for giving town input on steps needed to attract and retain a variety of small businesses that also the community would want to support. So the goals and the objectives of our EDC committee is to develop and implement an economic development action plan. And within that plan, there's supposed to be goals and objectives, action steps that are continually reviewed and amended as needed throughout the year. And what was interesting to me is we're supposed to be presenting to the council once a year on an annual basis our action plan. And so I'm not quite sure when that last has happened, but I would say it's probably a good time to revisit the action plan and take a look. Are we, what was completed? What are we done? Everything's changed in terms of the needs of our business community and also the residents. What do they want? So it's a good time right now to start off. The organization of the committee, right now we have 7 different members. When I went through the resolution, it really talked about that there, and Mark, I'm so glad that you're here right now, because on the variety of the types of businesses that would be represented on this committee, they said that somebody in commercial realty should be involved, somebody from the Chamber of Commerce. They wanted merchants, small business and financial experts, and design and construction professionals. And they also indicated that they wanted residents on this committee so that there would be adequate stakeholders. And so, as we start off today, I think it's a good thing to start off with taking a look at the infrastructure of us. This resolution was last written in 2015. With COVID hitting us, it's important to have the proper stakeholders. And, in taking a look at it, I feel like there's a lot of residents, there's a lot of the original stakeholder group that they wanted, but I think that there's some that we might want to take a look at possibly adding. And, do we have the correct stakeholders? Yes or no? If not, what stakeholder representatives should be added? Should we make a recommendation to the town council to expand the number of seats? Because right now we've got 7 seats. And, would we want to target stakeholders recruited and appointed to the committee? So in looking at it, to me, I see that we don't have right now a commercial real estate person. Smile, Mark. Red Hill.
Smile.
And, I think it would be great to have, somebody from Red Hill and possibly Greenfield, and, we downtown retail merchants. Do we have enough? So I'd like to put it out there. Let's start off with the stakeholder group. Do we have the right stakeholder mix at this point? And if not, who should be added, or who should we try to add?
Jessica, do we have throngs of people lining up to be on this community committee?
Actually, we have, now Benedetto, you just reapplied, correct, to be on the committee?
Yeah, and Rebecca from Red Hill applied as well, and I hope the town will approve it. Definitely
Yeah.
Red Hill got to be around, and definitely Mark or a commercial real estate got to be part of this. I'm a little bit confused about some of the others that Jessica, you have mentioned, because let's say regular residents elect the town council. That's the way they show their preferences, and they can also be part of many other committees from the, the green energy. There are many other ways. I don't know how much a single resident being part of this committee could represent anything but himself. When I'm here, I'm not here for the San Anselmo Inn, but for the Chamber of Commerce and all our members, and even some of the some of the merchants or business who are not member but come to us. And so what would be a regular resident, add but his own ideas, because if he would like to represent a large group of people, he should run for town council and then represent those people on the town council. And just a quick comment, also because we just seen recently with the street closure on weekends, kind of a conflict between the residents who really wanted the streets closed as much as possible and the merchants who didn't. So that was kind of a funny situation that I thought that everybody wanted, by the way, personally. So I don't know. I think a real estate, I've been begging also for the chamber to have some on our board. It's very important because they know everything really what's going on and why some places and some towns are are going to fill out their vacancies or not. So that's
Okay,
my
so what I'm
comment.
hearing is you're concerned about having a resident added to the committee.
I mean, who
Jessica,
would
aren't we
he
all
represent?
But see, there are a number, I'm not worried about the residents because I'm a resident. And who else? I mean, there's a lot of people that are on the committee that are already residents. So to me, when I'm analyzing what the stakeholder groups are, and this is actually part of the resolution that was drafted by the town council and updated back in 2015 about the purpose and the reason for being of the Economic Development Committee. And they wanted to really focus on not only just what the business community's needs and expectations were and how to, attract and retain those types of businesses, but it was really also what type of businesses would the community and the people that live here want to have. And so to me, I'm not saying we need to add residents because there's a lot of residents. We have many different hats here. What I'm saying is that when I look at what was written out versus where we are right now, it's like, I feel like, the big question is, are we only about downtown businesses or are we about all the businesses? And see, for me, I look at beyond just downtown. I look and I see that it would be really advantageous to have stakeholder groups from Red Hill and possibly Greenfield and possibly another retail merchant with all the, the stuff that's going on with the on the avenue. So Jamie?
Just a quick note. I was thinking this morning how amazing it is that we're having this meeting in August. It's our first August meeting in the last 2 years that I've been on the committee. And it's
Oh,
a testament as to like how amazing this new time is that almost everyone can make it in August. And we should
yes.
also consider, is this a new change? Like, is it now possible for everyone to make every meeting? Because historically, I think the excuse for not having more people on the committee was that it was too hard to get a majority of people, a quorum, together for a meeting. Advantage of COVID is we haven't had that issue. Everyone's been able to make most meetings, it's just a matter of scheduling on your calendar. So I would consider that we do have room for more people, and it's really questionable who they should be. We should really look at who they should be and, what are we solution oriented towards? Because we know what all the problems are, so we don't need people who tell us the problems. Problems are all very obvious at this point. But what are we actually working towards, and who are the people that will build whatever the future is, should be the question we're asking.
So what do you feel that those people are, Jamie? I mean, do you feel that we should add, because what I'd like to do is to walk away today with creating a set of recommendations for approval to the council. I'd like to go and, I mean, what type of stakeholders do you think should be added? Do you feel that a commercial real estate person should be added or actively recruited to join our
I might
committee?
hang on and wait and see what other people say here. I'm interested.
Okay.
Jessica,
Go ahead.
my thoughts on it is that your agenda today is to go through the action plan and see where are the activities that really need attention, and then find out where our holes are. You had talked about seeing if you can get a designee for each one of these to champion that particular item. And it's almost as if that person has to then recruit from the rest of the committee to see who they need in order to flesh out whatever needs to be done. And then if there are holes, then maybe we go looking to fill those holes for that kind of specific expertise.
I think Rich brings up a good point. I like that concept, but I do also, I think, agree with the sentiment that having someone with a commercial real estate background gives us pretty valuable real-time intel, and I see that being valuable to the committee.
I have a
especially-
question. How long is the commitment if you are on this group? Is
Yeah.
it for a year? What are you talking about? Lifetime appointment?
For you, it could just be guest appearance.
I appreciate that.
We'll
Yeah,
make special
good idea.
rules.
I could miss a,
Mark, it would be,
Ooh.
it's normally a 3-year commitment.
wow. Okay.
But I guess, the question is, do we want to add additional stakeholders? Brian?
Yeah, I have a question. So I guess my question is this, because we've had real estate individuals on the committee before, okay? And I guess the real question is, I would ask the committee, what is it they want from the real estate person, right? Like I would be very targeted. Are they providing sort of, oh, the rents in San Anselmo are this relative to the other communities, stuff that doesn't change? Or is it how the community can more effectively outreach to community realtors? And I say that before because we've had them on, and I'm not sure the committee's ever sort of forwardly thought how to leverage them. In terms of the other business districts in town, and this is just based on, I'm just bringing forward this historical data, which I suspect most members on the community had, right? In the past, the general manager of Red Hill Shopping Center was a part of the committee and ostensibly represented all of those retailers, and then participated in community activities. We recently had another member of Red Hill apply to be on the committee, who seems to be, highly energetic and engaged with a bunch of those communities, businesses. So maybe that's it. Greenfield, I would just sort of cast, and maybe things have changed. It's less of a destination and more if people go there for a specific reason, right? Particularly with sort of the fitness area. So, if you want people from there, in the past, what we've done is sort of gone and knock on the door, but I would sort of ask, like, what might that be? Finally, I want residents to participate. Most of you are residents, and I really say kudos to all of you that have participating now and in the past, that I've always found the residents to be certainly thinking far beyond their own personal concerns. So not to have them would be a huge loss to the committee. That's it, Jessica. Thanks.
Thanks, Brian. Anybody else?
Okay, I have a question. I'm not sure if I know the mission statement for the committee. And I'm wondering if I knew the mission, or if you read it, if it was a sentence or two at every meeting, visitors could understand, like, well, what's the goal here? Because honestly, I didn't even know you guys existed. And I've been active in San Anselmo for probably 10 years. Benedetto never mentioned it, so I never heard of it. And I'm thinking that if it's outreach, like somebody might have mentioned, maybe there's a survey. Okay, and it's like, what does the community want? What do the shopkeepers want from you?
We have a survey.
You have a
Yeah, and
survey.
Mark, we just
Yeah, it was
actually,
done
at
a
the
survey.
beginning of COVID, actually
Mhm.
created very quickly a needs assessment survey.
Uh-huh.
And we had over 100 response. So
Also,
Okay,
a
I
few
would
years
love
ago,
to
we had
see-
the survey, and we know that the number one was to have an hardware store in downtown San Anselmo, and nobody's opening the hardware store, Mark. So find
I
it.
think I heard a mention of that. And,
can I, Mark, I can actually send you a copy of the resolution. And Elise, I believe it also is on the EDC page, correct?
Yes, and I uploaded it to the meeting documents for today. Yeah, I'd be happy to send it too.
okay.
Mark?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
even like I said, if a member of the a resident was to watch this meeting, I've been to meetings like you go and I was a Toastmaster. And the beginning of the meeting, they say, "Welcome. This is a positive and supportive place for you to improve your public speaking skills and self-confidence." And everybody's like, "Oh, okay." So as long as that everything you're doing is marching toward that mission, what's cool. You're going in the right direction. And it's hard for me to know because I don't know your mission. I don't know if your actions you're taking are getting you closer to where you're going. Right? And I can look at it on the website, but I think if everybody were to kind of embrace that more, I don't know. This is like an observation, and I'll take my question off the air, right? But maybe in a sentence, somebody can just tell me what is the mission?
I mean, I could read the charge and the purpose.
Okay, all right, but I'm just saying,
I
like,
had
just tell
summarized
me.
it at the beginning. The charge of
right.
the Economic Development Committee is to work with the town's business community to identify actions that can be taken to ensure that the business community is vibrant, successful, and meets the needs of the town's residents. That's the charge. That was the resolution. The
And it's
purpose.
interesting how it does go to residents. It's
That's
about
why
meeting
I'm
the
bringing
needs of the
this up,
residents.
yes.
Right,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So did you
Um,
survey the residents, or did you survey the shopkeepers, or who'd you guys survey?
The
It's-
residents were surveyed also.
And that's
Yeah,
what
all right. All right,
Yeah.
I'll take a look at it. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I'm just thinking, like, what am I committing to do with this committee for a certain period of time? Like, should I get the word out? Like, I don't even know, like, how can I help?
Okay,
Right?
Mark, can I
Yeah.
That's a good
schedule
question.
a
I don't
meeting
know
with
if we're in the marketing world right now. I'd say that like that's not our job as a committee, as we're not a marketing committee, and we're not
Okay.
marketing ourselves to the residents. That's never been a focus of the committee. The
Mhm.
focus of the committee has been what's the success of San Anselmo businesses tied to? What do we need to do as a town, as residents,
Mhm.
as people who are interested and care about the businesses? Like, what do they need to support them, and how can we help them? We have no budget. We have no need for anyone to know who we are beyond what's happening in town. So we've done a lot of different things, from beautification to analyzing what businesses are in town to figuring out how to get people downtown. And it's a good question as to what are we doing today? And I think that's a whole different question, because I'm not sure we know as a committee what we're doing today. I know that we're not a marketing committee. I know that 100%, because marketing is an expense and we don't have a budget. And I also know we're not a marketing committee because we're not accountable to anyone for marketing. So what
Okay,
we
I'd like
actually
to
do is a great
can I bring
question,
things
but whether
back?
we need more people is also an interesting question that I think we should be debating, is like, what are the resources we have as this committee and what do we need?
And see, I actually work backwards. To me, it's the needs and the expectations of the customers, and then what resources are needed to implement what this group wants to do. And what I'd like to do is to kind of, Kelly, you had your hand raised.
Jessica, then what are you identifying as who's customer? What is a customer and who are they? Who are the customers of this committee?
To me, it's the business community, and it's also the residents. If I read the resolution, do you have a copy of the resolution? I sent it to everybody last night.
Yeah,
And it's been,
everybody got that. Yeah.
Well, Jamie raises a good point. I think when you say that we're not accountable to anybody, in a sense, we're accountable to ourselves. We're accountable to town administration. But as if we talk about who's our customer, in that regard, you're absolutely right, Jamie. We don't, residents, we're not accountable to them or even to the merchants. We just hope that they benefit from what we do.
right. Kelly, you had your hand up.
Well, my point I was going to make is just that we also are a working committee. So that's my one concern, is that we can say all the different, the people that we want from all the different areas, but we have to make sure people are willing to come on and work, because that's what we get work done in between these meetings. And so I like the idea of having representation, but not just to weigh in at the meetings and then leave and then nothing gets done. So I think it would be helpful for us to maybe put together for town council, because we don't do the interviewing. We don't do any of that part of it. We just get whoever comes on. So, and I think if someone interviews for it and they seem great, then they come on to the committee. So that would be my only input, is just to make sure that, that it's clear that it's a working committee. And the chamber, I think, is the place for the merchants and everybody to work on things and go up through Benedetto's group to air grievances and things like that, or work as a group for marketing purposes. But this committee seems to have a different focus than the chamber. So maybe we need to clarify the difference between the chamber and the EDC. I don't know.
And how
I'd
we're
like
gonna,
to make a comment, as you mentioned the chamber, Kelly. I believe that the resources of this committee are the technical and professional skills of the people who are part of the committee. You know, the biggest resource we had, no offense to anybody else, in the last few years has been Rich Burns and his capacity from a concept to have amazing signs in town. So I believe the selection of the members should be based on the skills and as Kelly said, and the desire to work on projects. So you can have somebody representing all the gyms on that section on town, even if their business is not necessarily on that section on town. And so it's not just a geographical issue, it's also which industry they represent on the committee. And Mark, by the way, you didn't read the minutes of the chamber because Connie was reporting all the time attending these meetings.
Right.
Okay, so you were not paying attention to the minutes. But anyway, and definitely, I believe that this committee should basically filter the needs, you know, before they reach the town manager and the town council to turn into action, to turn into a budgetary item or additional work for Dave or Sean or anybody else. And that's why I was making a point about residents. I didn't mean that we don't need residents. I believe that we should have residents who add value to the committee with a very specific professional or even the desire to work. That's enough. So I didn't mean to keep out residents. I meant what kind of skill we want on the committee.
Dave, you've got your hand up. Thank you, Benedetto.
I just wanted to sort of get back and level set and also address a question that's come up on the Q&A. So, you know, this committee started years and years ago as a subcommittee of the council. It was much more loose. There wasn't a membership, but certain people came on, and we struggled to keep representation from the different business districts. And it was a lot of talk, and there wasn't an action plan, things like that. When we formalized this, we tried to put everything in the format of of an action plan. And I know we have one. And I just wanted to go back and make sure everybody realizes that we're planning in the spring to do our 2-year update, which is a process that we've done before. And obviously the pandemic knocked us sideways and we haven't gotten back there. So there is a structure. I've been involved in this committee for 11 years and seen its growth. And, you know, I think when we went to council to formalize it, there was some thought of, do we have these rigid categories that we want of different people? So we have actually attract and have the seats taken in a way that that has to be that. And they decided that because that may limit who's able to get on the committee, they left it open, but then put recommendations in the resolution as to kind of the makeup of the committee. And I think that the way that's worked here is, you know, when we've had an opening, a lot of us know, between all of us, probably know everybody in town, especially the business community. So we've encouraged people who kind of maybe would be a good fit to apply, and it's really worked well. And right now, I believe Benedetto and Rebecca from Red Hill have been interviewed and should be appointed, or consideration of appointments will happen in August. The other thing the council does regularly is expand committees. If there's more great volunteers than technically are allowed to be on a committee, they'll easily just say a temporary expansion to not get rid of that possible assistance that comes with our members. So I think basically I think what we need to do is to keep this on track is we're going to be talking today about the Economic Development Action Plan, which we've worked on for a number of years and most recently have put into a much more in-depth document with action steps within that, which is what we'll talk about today. But I think what Jessica had her intention is to kind of guide us through the process of updating that and then working off of it. So Mark's question could be answered by, here's our action plan, here's the things we're working on, here's where we are. The updates provide sort of a time stamp on what we're doing on each of them. And technically, the development of the action plan, work plan, would involve input from the community through this group. So I think the structure's all there. But Mark's right also, if you come into it fresh, you don't know all that. So I totally appreciate that. Like, I don't know what this, if you're not intimately involved in all the work we're doing, you wouldn't know. You'd walk in and you wouldn't really kind of understand what we're doing. So I just wanted to say that, and that let's get it back to really focusing on, kind of the representation, and then the work plan. And the most important thing about the work plan is making sure people are plugged in as part of it, so there's action between all the meetings. I know that's something that Kelly mentioned. And then going to Lori Berliner, and I know it says, as a merchant, I feel the committee lacks representation of my interests. As the On the Avenue experience has shown, merchant involvement is big changes is critical to success. The chamber does not represent all of the merchants and hasn't, in the case of the fund, incorporated even member opinions. So I know that there's some confusion maybe that, the chamber is the one that took all the applications for and I don't want to get into that here, but to Lori, the chamber, the San Selma Community Foundation is the one that's is dealing with the micro grants. I think it was a pretty open and a process that allowed for anybody to apply that met the criteria. So that's sort of an offline conversation. And as far as representation, that we're always looking for merchants to jump on. So, I just want to, we're kind of getting all over the place here. I kind of want to get it back to our core goal is what can we do as a town to support the business community and make it successful. I think the signage program is an example of that. I think On the Avenue was an intention for that. And so that's sort of where we are with all this.
Thank you so much, Dave. Okay, so I'd like to bring it back because I was hoping to walk away with some takeaways and agreements. Kelly, what you have brought up about everybody participating and getting work outside of the meetings is something that I think really needs to happen. And I think that one way of making that happen as we start going through the action item list is to make sure that everybody on the committee is at least a co-lead of at least one action item, so that people are responsible for working with each other outside of the meetings, and that the meetings are really used for these little subgroups of the action items to present recommendations, obtain feedback, get approval, so that our meetings are very efficient. So I'd like to put out there a proposal. Can we, as a group, agree that every member of our committee would be a co-lead of at least one of the action items?
Yes.
Anybody not agree? Comments?
I said yes.
Oh, okay. Okay, so can I have a vote on that? All the ayes? Any noes? Okay, great. Thank you very much. That was, for me, a really big takeaway. And Kelly, thank you for bringing that up. In terms of the makeup, the stakeholder makeup of the group, is it the recommendation of this committee? The bylaw or the resolution says 7 members. So
are we discussing this? Is this our second or third meeting expanding, or do we want to expand? Because I feel like this has come up a couple of times, and I don't know if it's like out of need, or are we just talking about it? Are we like, is this your agenda, Jessica? Is that you want more people on the committee?
Okay, I'm going to be really
direct. You're the only one that's bringing it up, so I would like to know.
Yeah, okay, I'll be real direct. In terms of taking a look at the stakeholder group that's on the committee right now versus what the resolution is versus what's changed with COVID-19 and what's happening, where I feel like we have, we're faced with extreme challenges in our business community. And at the same time, I look at the vision of like the Creekside Commons and, the potential for creating, a downtown vibrant, committee. And so I'm asking all of you, I don't think that we have enough of the right stakeholders. I think we could make it a little bit better. For example, Mark, when you came the last meeting, you really added a lot of value and gave us a lot of information. I like having stakeholders that can go back to their contingency, their group and get input. and work on projects. So my recommendation
So
is
then,
yes.
Jessica, are you saying that you don't have the stakeholders on the committee that you want to accomplish what you want getting done?
It's
Is
not,
that-
it's
is
not
that
me,
the issue?
Jamie. It's the we. I'm not the type of chair or leader that is the I, okay? To me, it's we, it's us as our committee, as we're moving forward, especially with COVID-19 and, you know, Creekside and the vision for potential for what we can do for downtown. For me, it's all the businesses. It's not just downtown. It's, you know, do we as a committee have the right people on the committee? That's what I'm asking. I think that we should add a few people. I think that having a Red Hill, I've spoken with Rebecca. I highly recommend Rebecca.
Well, we've already
I
got
think
two people coming on, right? We've got Benedetto new, and then we've got Rebecca coming on.
We actually only have one opening on the committee.
That's why I'm saying there's only one opening. And I'm feeling, when I look at the resolution,
After Rebecca, you're saying there's one opening after Rebecca?
no, there's one opening right now.
Can I make a quick comment? I'm sorry, please. When you talk about me, it's not Benedetto Chico on the committee. It is
No,
the
you're
Chamber of Commerce, okay? Just to be
and
clear,
see,
that
but we want-
traditionally has been part of this committee. And
and
at
you
one
know what?
point, I'll be out as soon as possible when I'm done with my mandate, and somebody else on the chamber will be around. But I'd like to make a quick comment. I'm sorry, Jessica. One point is to have, let's say, guest speakers like Mark that made that amazing presentation, and we can have at every meeting somebody from no, I'm serious, Mark, because we need to hear from the people on the field, you know, in the trenches. And we can have one for each industry, and one point to have necessarily one person on the committee for each specific industry. I believe are two different, we are open to listen to people who bring their experience, but as Mark said, once he's on the committee, that I believe we should have, by the way, a commercial broker, what I'm supposed to do for the committee. That's the question. The people, we know that we're going to have somebody from Red Hill, so that problem is solved. I don't believe the town, I hope not, will refuse her on the committee. She's a great addition. So what are we missing now exactly?
Okay, when I
that
look
would
at,
be the question.
We're a half hour into discussing missing.
yeah,
something.
and we've
And
got
we
to
have
kind
a
of like
2-year
move.
problem of not making it through the schedule list, the action program summary that you have on today's list.
Yeah,
We haven't gone
so
through
far,
that
let
list
me just
in 2 years.
get people back on track. We've got everybody to agree to be a co-lead. I think that's marvelous. At this point, there's 7 spots on the committee. Are we saying that we want to keep to 7 spots, or are we open to expanding it? Yes or no? Anybody who's open with expanding it, please.
Let me just step in, Jessica. You know, as I mentioned before, if there are more applicants than seats, and the applicants are great, like we have now, the council will expand. There's no only choosing one between Rebecca and Benedetto. So that might be kind of our out here. It doesn't sound like there's a lot of interest in.
No, and at month 3 of discussing this, just get whoever you want to apply. Like,
Yeah, that's
Dave,
really
you
what
said that last time that anyone can expand.
All right, so is
Just
everyone
whoever
okay
you
with
want to
moving
apply,
on?
apply.
Everyone okay with moving on at this point?
Yeah.
And encourage people that you feel would be a great asset to our committee here. Okay, so let's move forward then to the action plan. Does everybody have the document that I sent out? And this, normally when people are working on an action plan or a committee, it's more than just an hour-and-a-half meeting, okay? It's usually hours of putting this together. So I'd like to get going on starting. Does everybody have their document in front? Mark, I'm sorry. Elise, can we send Mark?
Oh, sure.
So what I'd like to do is to go through here and take a look at what we have currently and ask if that's appropriate to keep or not, and then move on to what's not here. Does that sound like a good plan to follow? Okay. All right. So the first thing on the list was downtown circulation, parking, streetscape, and bike pedestrian improvements. And basically it was to improve the convenience and availability of parking for visitors to the downtown, upgrade and beautify downtown through improved landscaping, streetscape, and other public amenities. The parking study, where are we on the parking study?
I guess I can jump in. So Scott Schneider, who's on the call here, completed the parking study, I believe, in the fall. And we have been, we've intended to, the recommendations that are coming out of it are, you know, there's quite a few. And I think that we planned on going to the council this summer, and just, you know, COVID's knocked everything off. But, you know, I don't know if Scott, if you want to pipe in, but, you know, we're talking about some pretty big changes regarding paid parking on the avenue and changing some of the zones. So, you know, I think we've been through it on this, like to Jamie's point, we've been through it a lot here, and we've kind of all heard about it. And Sean's not here, but I think Scott might be able to kind of tell us where we are from his perspective, if you wouldn't mind, Scott, if you're listening.
Sure. Yeah, so we did a bunch of traffic counts and parking counts, and that was back before everything shut down. And so right now, we're not seeing the same problems that we had before of parking lots being full and people not being able to find parking. So many of the recommendations were specifically aimed to try to free up some additional customer parking closer to downtown. And several of those recommendations may be fine to implement right now. But like Dave said, one of the biggest recommendations was to do paid parking on the avenue. And that's a significant project with significant cost. And it was recommended to help solve the parking problem. And right now we don't have that parking problem. So it's a strange time to be bringing forth solutions to problems that don't currently exist. I think there's always improvements we can make downtown. And as you may see in our public meeting tomorrow, describing or introducing the Quick Build project with potential for one-way traffic on the avenue between Tunstead and Tamalpais, that may have some changes to the parking schemes that may benefit from some of the other recommendations in the parking study. So there's a lot of interlocking things going on, and I'm always happy to bring forth parts of the parking study or different things to deal with different situations as they come up.
Scott, is anybody, if we're talking about other members working on this, is anybody else working on this particular action item with you from the committee? If we're looking for co-leads, who else from the committee is working on it?
I'm not sure right now. I was just tasked with doing the study, and so I haven't worked with anybody particular.
Okay.
We did have a gentleman who's no longer on the committee who was assigned to it. I don't know if Brian, you haven't been involved, have you? Brian Stewart?
I mean, I was involved a little bit in terms of, Scott and I had coffee a couple times and batted some ideas around.
Okay.
I'd be happy to be involved in this if there's but I would also say that, I think Scott hit the nail on the head. I think I thought the recommendations were well done and well thought out and great for pre-COVID. And now we kind of need to wait until we're, post-COVID to implement most of them. As long as we don't forget about the parking study and it stays current and relevant.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think maybe do a little bit of planning on that.
Where I am too. I think.
Okay. So for planning purposes, we're going to keep this action item, and then Brian, you'll be the lead for the committee on it and working with Scott Schneider, correct?
Sure.
Okay. Everyone okay with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Mostly Scott. Scott, are you okay with that?
Yes.
Take him out for coffee. Okay. Parking enforcement, is that part of that study as well? Does that fall under the category?
To some extent, but I think it's more of a since the council kind of directs the operations of the Central Marin Police Authority, it's kind of an their wheelhouse to request additional enforcement or back down on enforcement or other things like that.
The last time the EDC spoke about it, the police spoke to the EDC in June of 2020. And then the next steps were going to be to improve the signage downtown with some, like adding the fines to the signage. And then we did have Benedetto and Jessica as EDC members on that task.
So I guess the question is, hey, Benedetto, do we still need this parking enforcement at this point, or is this something that we should not have? We should not.
As Scott said, right now, parking, unfortunately, is not really an issue. There is plenty of parking most of the time, and beside the rush hour at Comfort.
Okay.
So I believe should not happen. About policing, but has nothing to do with what we're discussing now, is still the Wild West when it comes to speeding, unfortunately, and U-turns, but that's a different issue. So.
Okay, so I guess the question is, can we take it off? Do we need to work on it? Do we want it part of our action plan right now?
I don't want to keep piping in, but I'm going to. I feel like all of the different parts of 1.2 are all valid. I just think maybe they're on ice right now because of COVID.
Okay.
I'd hate to get rid of it.
Okay.
I think we're going to see that all going through this document, that there's just maybe it's not the right time to do it, but I think they're longstanding issues that we're going to need to deal with.
Okay, so Scott and Brian, are you okay with absorbing this under your umbrella of parking then? Are you okay with that?
Sure.
We're talking specifically about putting the fines on the signs underneath the.
We've already done that on the U-turn, no U-turn signs.
Yeah. Okay.
And
well.
I actually have, Rich brought up, is it possible to link related documents, in other words, the parking study, to the action plan? And my answer to that would be, we would absolutely want to do that, correct? So the answer, yeah. Okay.
Jessica?
Mm-hmm.
So look, I want to apologize. I realize how hard it is to run a committee, and I don't want to bigfoot in, but I just want to share two thoughts that I would like to get from the committee. I think you're getting there, but I just want to let you know something that I'm working on as a takeaway, if you don't mind. Okay. So the county level right now, they're raising money for an economic development grant, and they're looking for buy-in from the towns. Okay. So at a very high level, this is what I'm thinking based upon my involvement with the committee, based upon knowing and talking to all of you. And I'm going to parse through what I hear through the meeting. My high level approach has always been at the end that this committee has always acted for the long-term interests of the business community. That is to say, they've never been attempting to be particularly responsive to any particular business at a given time and negotiate that balance. I've always thought the skill set that has been missing on this committee in terms of time and bandwidth, not necessarily for a lack of desire, is the ability to go out and actually reach out to businesses and bring them back to San Anselmo, right? So that's one thing that I want to embed in the county plan and then filter it through this EDC. So that's just one thing, coupled with whatever else comes out of your discussion this morning, Jessica. So okay. I'm going to step back. I just wanted to let people know, like, this is how I'm filtering it. Thank you. And I'll just step back. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Brian. All right. So in getting back to the downtown circulation parking streetscape, that action item, can we move on? And then what will happen is that the next meeting, Brian and Scott can work on this together. Is that how we see, like, the downtown parklets and the outdoor seating?
I mean, the parklets seem like a natural fit there for sure with parking. I mean, they're.
Okay. So you're okay with, because I think that what really needs to happen is.
So you're talking about 1.5 through 1.53?
Yeah, and then there's also, there's a thing in here about a beautification committee or source of volunteers for the downtown maintenance improvements. And so under that section, there's a whole list of things. And so what I'm hoping we're going to have is that we're going to have co-leads identified where they can actually go through each item and eliminate what's been done already and come back and report out. So on the downtown parklets, the outdoor seating, is that something we still want to work on? Is that still something?
I think it's an urgent matter that should be considered as soon as possible.
Okay.
So yes, on behalf of the chamber and the members of the chamber, and not, but still, we do support that.
Okay.
And it's
So,
actively being worked on in conjunction with a quick build project. So I feel like that, yeah, that's something that is, you know, we have the temporary closures, but I think the parklets are what could happen, you know, on a permanent basis. So I think it's worth keeping, as Benedetto said.
now who
this-
from the committee would be working on that? Is that Brian and Scott? Is that the lead? Is there somebody else that
I
would
think-
want to?
I mean, I'd love to see Benedetto as our EDC person working with Scott and Sean.
You already
we-
exchanged some emails with Sean, so definitely I would be happy to.
Yeah,
Also, because years ago I did a study on parklets to see what might work or not, so I'd be happy to be part of that, yeah.
I think it's already happening to a certain degree just because Benedetto's position on the chamber. So I think sort of
Yeah.
making that the EDC thing would be good.
Okay, so then what I'm hearing is 1.5, the downtown parklets outdoor seating. The leads are going to be Benedetto, Sean, and Scott. Is that correct?
Unless somebody else wants to co-lead with Benedetto.
Anybody else want to be involved?
I'll put my hand up for that one as a participant, a helper. It's interesting.
Okay, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
Wonderful. Okay, beautification, downtown hanging flowers. Is that something that we're still focusing on? I know that Nancy has been dealing with that.
Yeah, I was going to say that she's been getting funding on her own through her own fundraising efforts, and then our staff has helped, I think, but I don't think it's one that needs to be led by a EDC member at this time.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is, can we take this off?
Yes.
Everyone in agreement?
Yes.
And just
Okay.
to put a point on what Elise says, the town is very involved in helping with the structure of the program and the water cart, and we donate to the program, but we want to keep it a community-led program.
Okay, but it won't be an action item for the EDC any longer.
Right.
And
Okay,
if there is anything to report, we talk the chamber with Nancy all the time. We did the fundraising, and the chamber just donated some money as well to the beautification committee. So I'll be happy to report if there is any need from her.
wonderful, Benedetto, thank you. Okay, 1.6 downtown maintenance improvements such as litter, sidewalks, graffiti, and facades. Jamie, were you working on this?
I'd like to be on this. Yeah.
Who are the leads? Who's been working on this particular item?
We have Jamie as someone working on it must be from a prior meeting, but I don't think we've been doing anything actively as one of the goals recently.
Okay, so is this something that we still want to work on?
I think it would be good to work on it if there's any interest from the committee members to make it a goal, because there's some simple things actually that, like weeding and things like that maybe just take some notification to property owners. So it might be might be some inexpensive solutions if anyone was interested in making it their goal.
Yeah, I want to be on this group, and I actually haven't been picking up trash as much as I used to because I don't have gloves on, and I just haven't been wanting to touch stuff randomly on the street. But maybe we just need new systems like the doggy cleanup bags to help people pick up trash. And
Okay, so
Yeah.
Jamie, you're going to be a lead on this. Is there anybody else? I know that we're missing. We're missing Kim as well, so I'm not quite sure where Kim's going to be part of this. Jamie, anybody want to co-lead with Jamie on this? Or
I'll volunteer, Kim.
okay, and Kim.
I had a question for Dave about this. Dave, for example, I don't know if you noticed in front of Bank of America, since the branch has been closed, the trash is piling up a lot. You know the Bank of America in
Yeah.
front, there is always trash. I do pick it up if I feel
In
that
the
it's
gut,
kind
in
of
the gutter, in the
the
gutter.
guy. So there is
Oh.
any way to ask either the landlord or the branch manager somehow to do
Right.
at least a weekly,
That's
cleanup?
that's a great example of why to keep this on.
Right.
Okay, so Bank of America.
All right, so Jamie and Kim, Benedetto, do you want to be involved in that as well? No.
No. Thank you. I just clean up the trash if I see it. That's okay.
All right. The next thing on the item is list is 1.7, which is reduce visual economic detriment created by vacant storefronts, encourage activation of vacant space. Is this something that we want to keep on the group? Kelly, this was something you were working on, correct? And Elise, I think Elise, you were involved with it.
So we haven't looked, or there's ways to do like a pop-up program and really figure out where the vacant spaces are and then activate all those property owners. Some of these things are sort of on hold because the property owner survey was going to solicit who was interested in doing those kinds of things and getting more contact information for property owners. So I think it's not necessarily something I would take off the list, but I don't know that it should be a goal for this year.
Okay.
Or if and if opportunities came up, we would certainly act on them.
Kelly, is Kelly there?
Yeah, sorry, I've had stuff going on here, so I'm here.
Okay, so any comment on this? Are you the lead of this with Elise? Does the group want to keep it or put it on hold for right now?
I think we should keep it on here. It's kind of a funny time with COVID. Like she said, with the survey, that's one of the things we've been asking, and I think there's definite interest. So maybe we, I'm happy to work with Elise on it and sort of discuss possibilities and things. I don't know. It's an interesting time from a tactical standpoint, but I think we should leave it on there, and I'm happy to be the lead on that because it kind of goes. It's sort of a tactic after the survey, I think.
Kelly, is this an opportunity for collaboration with the Arts Commission, especially building on their success with the utility boxes and electrical boxes?
Yeah, potentially it is. I can definitely talk to Carrie about that. So I think that they had some interest in this. So yeah, we could definitely explore some different things. We'd also talked about just having something that was sort of a little bit of a standard thing that maybe was for our town, promoting our town or something that people might be able to put up. So there's kind of different options that different avenues we could look at from that standpoint. So.
Okay, I guess
maybe I would change it or like activate vacant storefronts is more of a bigger goal, but maybe not necessarily or keep it a broad goal with Kelly and I working on that with the Arts Commission and also Historic Society. But maybe not necessarily focusing on pop-ups. I mean, not to rule that out, but that's not necessarily the specific goal.
Okay. I have a comment from Rich. His comment is it's good to take items off the action plan, but those items should be tracked to document past actions and their current status. Perhaps a second tab in the action plan spreadsheet would be a simple way to do this. Rich, I totally agree with that, that when we put together our new action plan, that will have that option, and we will do a good job on tracking what's been done and where we are with things. The next comment that I have is from Lori Berliner. She said the trash in the new plaza next to Creekside in the morning, every morning is a real problem. So I'm going to hand that over to Dave to answer.
And I'll hand it over to Sean to take a look at.
There we go. Okay. All right. So the other is, so Kelly and Elise will keep the activate storefronts and also put on there, Jamie, your recommendation with the collaboration with the Arts Commission to explore. The next one is item 1.9, downtown circulation planning. consider one-way traffic feasibility. I know that that's currently underway, correct, Dave?
Yep.
Okay. So who from this committee is the co-lead on that? Or wants to be?
Yeah, so the question for this committee is what can we contribute? It seems like a town public works initiative at this point. So I'm not so sure, other than just kind of be there for our amusement.
Well, I think one thing we can do is be a conduit for input about it, because we don't have any, sort of accountability to that. It's a big public works discussion. And we're actually at 1.92 with a pilot project. So, Sean's doing, as I mentioned before, this is just the one-way feasibility with the Quick Build grant that Brian was nice enough to help us get. The pilot project, we're doing that first round of input. Is that tomorrow morning at 10, I believe? And then we're going to do another one that's much wider. This is really for the local residents and the merchants. And we're planning for next week. We're going to put one in the newsletter for one of the evenings next week to get sort of a wider net opinions on it.
Dave, how long, when we talk about a pilot product, what period of time? Is there a beginning and an end to that?
You know what? That's a great question. I don't know if Scott knows. I think it's definitely, through the good weather, which is when it can be really taken advantage of. But I don't know if it has a takedown time. Scott, do you have any idea?
There's no definite takedown time, but it's something that we want to at least have it be up and running for a couple months. What we don't want to have is spend all this time and expense to put it in, and then after 3 days have people say, oh, it's not working, so rip it out. So we want to have some time period to get it to be the new normal, to be able to be usable and workable. But like Dave said, even with the on the avenue street closures, come November, December with bad weather, we're not going to have a lot of outdoor dining. So the use of, or the useful functions of those schemes become less important or less practical. So it's not really defined, but we want to see how it goes and see if it helps.
Scott, is the way you put the infrastructure easily changeable? I brought the question up because I've had conversations with merchants who are a little bit apprehensive about that and what it's going to do for them. And so we have, in putting together the program, I assume that there's some sort of metric to determining whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, other than just, personal attitudes.
I actually have a comment from Lori Berliner. She says, is the EDC or the town generally going to reach out to the Avenue merchants in the form of a survey to get input and buy-in? Isn't that the lesson from the street closure experience?
I can talk to, but he told me this morning that there's outreach to the merchants and to the people in Cedar and Tamalpais. For tomorrow's meeting, he's received a lot of sort of free questions. So Lori, I don't know if Lori didn't receive that, and I can ask Sean how they went about trying to get the word out about tomorrow's meeting. Okay. And maybe we need to do some more work today.
I can speak to that as a member of council. Okay. I think one of the lessons from the street closure is that there's a whole lot of public meetings and engagement that go on in this town, and that there is some level of responsibility on the part of the business community to track what's going on, right? And people need to sort of participate. I mean, Lori, you're the case in point. You come to these meetings, you are participating. Your feedback is always warmly received, whatever it is, and for that I thank you. In the past, these meetings, when we've asked members of the business community to come, it's always been it's always one of the concerns we've had is that it's an inconvenient time and it's difficult to commute. I have to say, I believe that friction point is greatly lessened, if not removed, by the fact that the meetings are now on Zoom. So, I mean, I think the feedback is certainly solicited from the business community, but I think the larger conversation is going on is the avenue as such is part of the entire community. And the stakeholders are not only simply the business owners. So that's my response. And as always, you know, thanks for participating and being here. I believe there is, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, there is a meeting tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, right? And so I'm hopeful that there's a whole lot of merchant participation to participate in the conversation about something that hasn't happened yet. So
I think
thanks.
we should also be clear that the feedback is always heard and it's included, and we don't always get what we want. And I say that to you, Lori, as someone who, from my perspective, I rarely get what I want. Like, I wanted the avenue closed so that people could walk safely down the streets, not so that businesses could be encroaching upon the streets to try to promote selling stuff. I didn't get that, but we still changed the avenue and made some adjustments. And like, that's part of our compromise and negotiation here. And if it benefits your business, I feel like that's great for you, but I don't know if that's like what's best for our community. And also, as we continue down the road, I feel like it's important that we keep trying to include all the voices of the community. And so while people ask for the avenue to be changed, it's a constant experiment. And all we've learned so far is that by closing the avenue, more people came down than don't. And if we need any further proof of that, we can just walk down the avenue today or tomorrow or Wednesday, Thursday, and we'll see hardly anyone on the avenue. So if your intent is to bring people down to the avenue, the closing of the avenue has been pretty successful from my point of view.
Can I circle back to the action plan? Oops, Mark, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I'd love to give a quick report on 3 items and then duck out. I have a meeting to go to, and I would just like to jump in if I could. So somebody mentioned pop-ups. Who was it? The pop-up stores? Somebody
That's in
said
our
pop-up.
action plan as
Okay.
as one of the.
Okay, so I get a lot of calls for pop-ups, and there's a couple things that go on. There's liability, so everybody needs insurance. There's a lot of paperwork, and it's not great for everyone. But if you know someone that's interested in a pop-up, I have a few landlords that are open to it. John Kaufman, the old bike shop, is really ready to make a deal in there. Another thing, I get approached a lot about sticking artwork in the windows, and that actually kind of impedes the ability for me to rent the spaces. I've got so much stuff in some of my windows that it's dark in there, and it doesn't look as nice as if it were vacant. So I just wanted to get those 2 things out there. And another thing that we're seeing is, well, we're seeing some negativity and pessimism above the merchants. What they do is they get out and they go talk to each other and they say, I'm dead, I'm dying, you're dead, I'm dying. What are we gonna do? I'm going to file bankruptcy. I can't do this anymore. And I kind of see it like spiraling out of control. And I think that if we could bring some positive energy and optimism into the community and into the committee, I'm not saying it's not here, but we can combat that. Because if all we do or all they do is talk about how miserable it is, it just makes it more miserable. And I'm open to take any questions you have. Oh, one other thing I was going to say is that some landlords that have expenses are getting approached about, you know, let's say the hair salon can't be open. Well, the hair salon says, I can't pay rent. I can't be open. I can't make any money. And the landlord's got a mortgage. He's got property taxes. He's got water bills and everything else. Sometimes the solution is for that person to move out rather than try to be there and just be clinging on the vine and see if there's an opportunity for a new vibrant business to come in. I do now have 8 vacant spaces in San Anselmo. I have to go pick up a key for another place where a therapist just moved out of an office. So I'm getting more vacancies, and I'm open to any suggestions that you have. So that's kind of my report. And where do I look at?
Mark. I'd like to ask that any committee members that want to speak with Mark about vacancies and everything, contact Mark directly. I'm happy to send his contact information to everybody.
Yeah, I could tell you my phone number right now if you want. Phone would be great because I'm going to be driving in my car. I'll say it, 415-608-1036. And that's a great way to reach me. And
thank you so much, Mark.
I appreciate everything you guys do, and I look forward to the next meeting. All right? Okay.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
I know this is,
Bye-bye.
So
I
can
know
I
that
go
we're
back
pushing
to,
through this list, but I want to ask a question here. It seemed like Brian brought up something very important a couple of minutes ago, which is he said that his greater county EDC work that he's doing is geared around bringing businesses to local towns, and that they're going to be looking for opportunities for that. Are we going to be prepared for that after this meeting, or do we need to prepare for that as an EDC in terms of a plan to recruit new businesses, which Mark was just alluding to by, I think last time he said he usually has 1 or 2 open businesses, but right now he's got 7 or 8, and he's only one of the commercial realtors in town. We know there's probably closer to 20 or 30 spots going between the individual offices. So if there's an opportunity to find money to recruit new businesses, is that on our list, or should we be putting energy into that rather than just going through? Because I fear we're going to run out of time at 9:55.
well, and I totally agree with you, Jamie. And I think that in talking to a number of people, we felt that this was not going to be something we could get done in one meeting with the action plan. If you guys would like to stop working on the current action plan and switch over to what Brian is recommending, that's fine. It's really up to the other committee members.
Well,
Jamie,
good.
I'm sorry, Dave, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to say that, I pushed past the signage goal because it's basically ready. And I went to goal 3, which really speaks to the attraction and retention question that Jamie's talking about. And I know Brian's been a leader in the county and kind of looking at, the economic development landscape sort of North Bay wide. And I don't know how much of that has sort of started to form. I think it's very high level at this point, but I'd wonder if Brian wanted to give an update on all that.
Well, thanks, David. First, let me go back to the chair. Jessica, it's your meeting. I'm just the liaison. Where do you want to take
I'm
this?
it's our meeting. And
Okay.
What we did is we just jumped ahead to types and mix of businesses. And so what you're talking about aligns with that. So that's the next.
All right.
So hit it.
I just want to be mindful. So, the 30-second high level is that the Marin Economic Forum, which is sort of the county's economic think tank, is partnering with the county to ask for a grant of approximately $250,000 for economic development. And these kind of economic development plans are being put in place all over the country and counties, pointedly to address COVID. So what's going on right now is they're in the process of putting the grant together, and they're looking for feedback from what the local towns and communities might want to see in that grant. So right now there's the broad contours, and then later on the particulars of the grant will be shaped out. At a high level, and like I said before, I'm obviously here to solicit feedback and whatnot. I've always sort of thought where this particular committee could use help and lacks the bandwidth is if this committee knows what kind of businesses would be a fit here based upon the membership of the committee living here, the business retention survey, that kind of stuff. Could we then ask this grant to say, put money into a kind of program that would help us go out and find those businesses and attract them?
Mm-hmm.
Because notwithstanding the good faith involvement of all the previous commercial realtors that have been involved in this committee, we've always had a challenge in getting them to reach out to specific kinds of businesses. The business retention survey was not leveraged to the extent that we had hoped that it would be. That's my perspective. So I just wondering for feedback, or is there something else that this EDC would like to see embedded in that larger economic development plan that I could say, hey, put this in at a high level that would come back and feed and solidify the efforts of this group. That's where we're at a high level. And so, yeah, so if the committee would be like, yeah, Brian, that's great. Go and say, look, help the communities find businesses for them. Or our community needs something else, Brian, I'll slot that into the grant. And then when it comes through, hopefully in the spring, then someone will be able to leverage that level of expertise, right? That's what it is.
The timeline on this?
So,
No.
so the timeline of the grant is the high level of the grant. The initial feedback is going to the county level committee on the 13th. All right. And the feedback that's being accumulated is from all the Marin County managers and all 11 communities and other various stakeholders, right? The chambers are feeding into that. The grant is due on September 30th, but we're told it's a first come, first serve. So.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that we need to get feedback to you before the 13th of this month.
Yeah, the deadlines are sort of nebulous and moving, right? I'll be honest, but I think the sooner it can be filtered in. I'll tell you right now, the other communities haven't put in a lot of feedback. Okay, they just for the other communities through the Marin Council Mayors Group, we've only gotten 2 other communities right now. That's where we're at. I think a lot of people don't have the economic development committee that we have. Most of our towns are small.
Do you have?
I'd like to make a comment, Jessica. Yesterday, the Council of the Marin County Chamber of Commerce, we put 4 items because Mike at the Economic Development asked the chambers also to do some input, and they were very generic. I read them to you. It is diversification of the economies, improve technology, telecommunication infrastructure, train and keep our workforce and keep it safe, and to see what got to be done to attract more entrepreneurs to the new businesses, small businesses to the county. And that has been sent to Mike as well from the chambers, just for you to know about this grant application.
Thank you, Benedetto. Is there anything, Brian, that you can send out to us? I know that, there's been all sorts of discussion about, whether or not, for example, there should be, a subcommittee to explore opportunities to strengthen the economic vitality down in San Anselmo, such as like zoning and housing and infrastructure and a visionary process and stuff like that. And I think that, to me, it makes sense that we come up with something. If we need to do it in the next 2 days, then we better get moving, correct?
So here's the thing. I can send you the deck, but I'll tell you that the broad-based framework of the deck, I don't find particularly instructive.
Okay.
Right, it's just not super instructive, right? You're like, oh, here, read this deck, and then you'll come away being like, okay, it isn't much of a framework because the real meat and potatoes is going to come later on.
Okay.
Right? That's what I'm told. I just want to be people of mind for this time.
What should we, because I'm in agreement that we should absolutely take advantage of this and lead the efforts. Like with COVID-19, where we're there, a lot of what we did has become like a best practice. How do you visualize us being able to help at this moment? What is it that?
Okay, so one, I think this conversation and the discussion around the action plan about what's going on, I think that's been super helpful, because what I can do is I can tease the high level concepts out of what the committee has agreed to. So I already think that this morning has been very fruitful in that regard. What I would like, and it's just some thoughts or feedback on, does it make sense, Brian, am I alone in thinking a real benefit would be to have someone at the county level, or to have this plan figure out how to help this committee actively go out and bring businesses in? Do people think that this is actually one of the lesser strengths of this committee, or am I off base on that? Like if this
in other
committee,
words, what you're talking about is having a vision for what the downtown should be in terms of the types of businesses.
Exactly, because
Okay.
if this committee were to figure out what those types of businesses were to be,
Yeah.
I'm not sure this committee can execute on getting those businesses, right?
Right, because we don't have the funding, as Jamie said, we need, so, I'm all for it. What does everybody else think at this point?
I think our economic development plan does outline types of businesses that we could look for. And I think it is very difficult to find these, because they're usually small, for the most part, in San Anselmo, smaller mom and pop types of businesses, or don't have to be. But I would think it would be great if there's some sort of county support in trying to find people to occupy, but make it specifically for very small spaces. I feel like the county efforts tend to go for really large employers that bring in, more people. So being really focused on small businesses that fit our small spaces would be really, really useful.
Thank you, Elise.
Anyone else have a comment? Brian, Rich?
No, I'm good.
So you
Yeah.
support it?
I support it as well, and I just want to make sure, and I think it's been said a couple of times, that we don't have, I think we have the desire, but maybe not the expertise to know how to carry that out. We can certainly say we think based on our research and our surveys, we think these businesses would do very well in town, but who and how we would go and try to find those businesses is a big question. And I think we've already said that's where we seek some assistance from the professionals and from the county.
And I think also it would definitely involve, we would need to involve the landlords and the property, like the rental agents and that sort of thing, to be able to partner and create something like this happening. Any other comments?
This is Kelly. The only other comment I'd make is, just looking at what the hesitancy might be for people to come into San Anselmo. And obviously we've got the flood issue, which it's being mitigated, but it's not there yet. So we're a little bit in a waiting pattern for that piece of it. But clearly there's been movement, with the buildings coming down and all that. So, and then we always talk about, food is it's like food and experiences. Food is one of them. And so it's, again, working with the county health department to see how we can, kind of smooth the way to getting food safe businesses into spaces that didn't have food in them before. I heard that from the landlords when I've been doing the surveys, like that's a tricky one for them. So, they know it, but it's like kind of an obstacle because it's a back and forth between the landlord and the merchant to see who's going to pay for all that.
The expense to create a new restaurant in a place that is not an already existing restaurant is practically impossible for 99% of owners, operators of one single restaurant. The costs are out of proportion with the return on the investment. And for landlord to have a tenant got to be the financial capability of that tenant got to be very strong to allow him to convert a place to restaurant, not knowing if he'll be able to survive. So it's a very, very risky, expensive, over-regulated item. And that's why restaurants always go back to existing restaurants. They never start a new restaurant, a brand new.
So Brian, what you are suggesting is actually very aligned with what's on the action item, with and it's really one of the major missions of this committee. So what do you need from us? Who do you need involved to help with what you're doing right now?
I just got it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm great. I thank everyone for their feedback. I took notes, and I'm happy to execute on this. Thank you.
Okay, and it will be added to the action item list. Everyone in agreement?
Perfect. The only person I think who didn't weigh in was Mr. Ginsburg. Jamie, did you have any thoughts you wanted me to carry through on this?
I'm fully supportive of it. I just I have a little bit.
Mary?
So I have a little bit of concern as to whether we strive too high. Like when we shot for Equator, we found out they won't even consider a town like us. And so I feel like a little bit of what Elise said, like that the county may bring us into too big of an audience. And what we really need is to just go to Mill Valley, go to Larkspur, go into every successful shop and be like, come to San Anselmo also. Like put an also next to your shop rather than, like what's successfully locally. But anything that supports expansion of businesses available to our local residents, I'm a fan of.
And Brian, I think that's what's going to happen is the planning and the recommendations of what we're going to do and how we're going to do it and the resources needed, correct? I mean, that's to be determined what needs to happen.
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks again, everyone.
Thank you so much. All right, we have a little bit of time left. The types and mixes of businesses, do we want to hold off on this until we hear back from Brian with what's going to happen at the countywide level? Who has been leading these efforts would be a question that I would ask. For example, The subcommittees on vacancies and uses.
So
The
I
zoning
don't
change.
feel like there's been anyone necessarily leading that recently. For zoning changes downtown, I did have Jamie on that. And then for property owner input, we had Warner on that.
Okay. Kelly and Jamie, are you still wanting to be involved in this and lead it? Or is that something we're going to have to recruit others for?
I'm still committed to working on the survey and that piece of it. That's still in process. So it just, you know, it's been tricky with this timing. So
Okay.
my intention was to interview hopefully like 10 of the property owners. And then what I'd like to do is propose that we just do a survey out to the rest of them, because doing it in person or, well, now not in person, on the phone is, you know, it's long but it's helpful just to formulate the survey into a better, into better shape and kind of get it down to a tighter survey. So I think we're almost there, and then we can decide the timing for the sending out the survey to the rest of them. So I'm happy to continue on that.
Okay. Jamie, are you still involved in this or?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm happy to be involved.
Okay, then I'll put both of your names down. The commercial district on item 4, commercial district amenities and beautification. Is this the median? I mean, are we still working on this? The Creek Park Commons is obviously ongoing. The median project, are we done with that?
We're done with the Red Hill one. There is a mention of the Sir Francis Drake median, which is from Bolinas Avenue all the way to the hub, basically. You know, there's definitely interest to spice that one up again, but that, you know, we got very fortunate with Red Hill to get an individual donor. So I don't know if people wanted to, because, you know, I don't know how much impact we're going to have on the Sir Francis Drake one in absence of funding. And with everything else, it's dropped even farther down the list of things we're probably be working on real soon. So that's one of those ones. Do we want to keep it on there? You know, we feel like the entrances to town, the signage, all that stuff's really important to support businesses. So I'd hate to completely drop it. You know, we have put some maintenance down on the Red Hill one. I mean, the Sir Francis Drake one, just to keep it a little cleaner. But we haven't looked into sort of a full-blown rehab of it, because it, you know, that gets into the millions of dollars beyond what we're probably able to do at this point. So the
Hey,
question
Dave, I have a question. Speaking about changing names, I guess we're not speaking about that, but does the town have a position on Drake and the whole naming issue?
No, we're letting the public process kind of drive that, Rich. And there's been one meeting, sort of what they call a listening session. And on the 17th, there's going to be what's called a learning session. There's 5 jurisdictions that have Drake running through them, and we're doing this together just to gather public input. So no, nobody's at the point of actually taking a position on it.
Okay.
Obviously a very
Thanks.
sensitive issue. Yeah.
My suggestion would be we keep it in the general plan, but we don't actually have it as an action item. But keep the medians as something that we're looking for funding for.
Right.
Because those items under commercial district amenities and beautification are all still relevant. They're just not things that I think the EDC has any way to sort of act on right now.
Right.
Okay. So then what I'm hearing is that we're going to keep it as an action item, but we're not going to assign co-leads, and it's going to kind of be an inactive until we're ready to move on it. Is that correct?
That sounds good.
All right, moving on. Marketing and branding. Rich, this was you.
Well, I think we've done a lot of the heavy lifting. Well, a lot of the discussions we've had lately are about how we'd be most effective in terms of managing its ongoing implementation. I still owe the town, excuse me, the final on the draft or the final on the guidelines, the standards, which I have. And Jessica, you and I had talked about, or actually, I think in one of the previous meetings, we had actually talked, Elise, about introducing the concepts in the application of the brand to the staff. We talked about doing it for the committee, but I don't know that the committee, they'll get it quickly enough. If you just read the guidelines and extrapolate what's in there, it's easy enough to understand. But they're, in terms of day-to-day activity and the kinds of decisions that are made about how it's implemented, it's a question of whether we want to go that far in terms of codifying it and training people to use it.
What do people think? Any comments before I give my comment?
My comment will be that the more structure, the better, Rich. I think, there's been some liberal use of the logo since it's come out, and be nice to get, down to the staff level, because people grab it and do different things. It'd be nice to kind of give them some brackets about how that can be done.
Yeah, and I'm a believer that you don't get too punitive about it. And Sugarfoot is such an easy target in terms of bastardization. And so why don't I put that on my list, and I'll get together with Dave and Elise at some point and see how we want to go about doing that. And if we want to cast a broader net for if it's, for example, if it's something that's done as a Zoom presentation, we can make it available to anybody who has an interest.
Okay.
Yeah,
Particularly sharing it with the chamber, I think.
Yeah, we're going to build out a website, a series of, I have a web page for this. So that's sort of going to be the backbone of it, is the guidelines that you're putting together.
Okay.
One of the things that that I think that should be added to our action plan is around communication. And Mark really brought it up about how people don't know who we are and what we're doing and how to participate. And, it's really increasing the visibility of what we're doing. Does this—
Jessica, are you talking about the committee?
Committee, yeah, communication around the committee. Like, for example, the website, Elise and I have talked, like there were a lot of changes that happened with COVID-19 really fast, like the weekly business newsletters that are going out that we send through Dave. The website became a one-stop shopping type portal on how businesses can what resources are there for dealing with COVID-19. The grants, that sort of thing, the needs assessment survey. What's really important to me is that we need to be able to communicate with the business owners and identify the types of businesses and have access. Whatever we're going to be doing, I think that's going to be really key. And one thing that I know is that, like in communication, the website, social media, e-blast, that sort of thing. But what about, creating a way and have that as be an action item where we can identify the businesses and the type of business, and then have the contact information where we can reach out. Like, for example, Kelly with her landlords, it's been piecemealing this information. And I know that in talking with Elise, we've started looking at, like, for example, working backwards, business licenses. Is there some sort of software that would allow us to capture that information? And so my question on the communication is, would that belong under the marketing and branding, or is that something that should be its own action item? I think it's really important that it be added to the action item plans. So what do people think?
May I make a quick comment? And I don't want to be rude, but I really have to go. I'm sorry, I had to pick up my daughter. I believe that's the communication about the committee, not the town general marketing communication that is part of what Rich has been doing greatly. And thank you again, Rich. But if you don't mind, and again, I'm sorry, I don't want to be jumping. I wanted to give a quick update on the grants. Also, they were mentioned from Lori. If you don't mind, if I skip to that, I really got to get out of here. We have raised the chamber through the community foundation include $81,865 as of now, including the money from the town, the county, some banks, private businesses. We have 28 approved grants that will go out early next week. and another 7 or 8 who miss some documentation. So we asked them to complete the documentation to be able to be approved, specifically the business license. And Dave, I didn't really get the comment from Lori about the grants, but just to be clear, the grant has been open to anybody with a storefront or a business license within the 94960. No discrimination. They simply had to provide a commit that they were in business, that they were committed to stay in business. All applications are being reviewed by a third party. I told you, a retired senior official at the General Accounting Office, federal. We gave him all the application. He reviewed them. He approved them. And we are giving out the money. And just again, for the record, we excluded every board member business from being able to apply for the grant. So Pat or I or Chris or anybody else cannot get the grant. And 100% of the money will be disbursed either to the grant application or for the marketing of the town. That will be the next phase of this project. So I wanted to thank everybody who make a contribution. And again, next week we'll start sending out the checks. So, and I hope that will help the people who are getting them. Even if it's not a big amount, it should help at least. So thanks again, by the way, Dave.
Thank you so much, Benedetto. Let me do a
Goodbye.
time check here. And actually, Benedetto, we need to have a conversation on how we're going to partner, okay? The EDC and Chamber. All right, so I'm going to set up a meeting between us via Zoom. How's that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, my next Zoom availability is sometime in October 15, if we keep going at this rate, but we'll do it somehow.
I promise it'll be.
Thank you.
Jessica?
Yes.
Stella.
Thank you.
I'm wondering if we should maybe work on the rest of it next because we're losing people and it's getting late. It's 10:20.
And if everybody can just hang in there a little bit longer, the business permitting process, are we done with that?
I feel like we're done with that we have a good system in place to help people. We don't have necessarily paper materials available, but I don't feel like that's needed because the help we provide is so customized that it's not really practical to put something in writing that covers every single business that we talk to. And we might need to do a little more outreach on our the meetings that we allow to real estate agents. But I think for the most part, that item was completed.
So is this something the EDC can take care of and say we completed it and we're done?
I think so. It could maybe remain in the plan as something that we want to continue doing, but not necessarily anything the EDC needs to work on.
Okay. All right, everyone okay with that? All right, the next is events and business development, which actually the business development is almost where Brian's potential Marin County grant would lie. Who's been working on this, the co-lead for this?
I think it's got Benedetto and my name on it, but I'm not sure what it sort of goes back to the comment
That's
that
what we're looking at.
aren't you talking about the marketing communication?
The marketing and the branding. I have Rich, I think that some of this we're going to take a look at and determine what's.
Yeah, well, what I was saying is I think Jamie's comment at the beginning of this conversation that we're really not in a position to market tenants or merchant. That probably isn't the purview of this committee, even though it seems like it should be the first and foremost thing we do. How do we get these people more business? And it's a more ancillary role than the kind of direct marketing or advertising that, as he said, we don't have a budget to do that. There are no resources to do that.
And I think that with the money that has just been raised through the chamber with this, the fundraising that just happened, I think it's going to be really important to be able to partner with them to determine what's going on so we're not duplicating efforts and overlapping and conflicting. One thing that I do think I would like to add my name to the marketing and branding, if that's okay. Is there anybody else that's part of this? Kelly, are you part of the marketing and branding? No comment. Okay. All right. So if we can move on, the events and business development is On the Avenue supposed to be added to this? Who's been involved with this?
So that was actually one that it was kind of put in there because the chamber used to have an event, and I think it was there to sort of encourage the chamber to do events, but not necessarily for the town to create new events. But I think maybe it could be modified because the town does do a lot of things downtown and between On the Avenue and also different musical events and the Friday night music and library programs. So I think maybe we just look at modifying it, but I don't know that there's necessarily an EDC action. It's more, I think the hope was that there would be some sort of new big event to bring people downtown. But in this time, I don't see that that should be a goal for this year.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that events are not going to be on the EDC.
I think it should definitely be on the EDC action plan. It's one of the things that downtown areas find critical, but I think it shouldn't, it's not necessarily a goal for this year.
Actually, if I can weigh in, look, I think it needs to be taken off or put into the archive. I mean, we're already talking about a committee that is already sort of overstretched by its commitments. Events by their very nature take a whole lot of human power to put on. And I just think it would be, particularly to think about trying to put on events during a pandemic. I mean, I get your short-term concerns, but I would just sort of really want to fold it way down into the maybe someday, as opposed to not remotely executable in the future, because they're just not, you know, that's my perspective. I just offer that up.
And Brian, that's very negative, and I think 12-person events are, we really have to put a lot of human effort into these 12-person events that we can launch this year, so.
So real quick, if I can just comment, the events are not allowed in any way, shape, or form right now, according to the guidelines from the county. So I understand that we would want to maybe put on a 12-person event, but anything that might encourage crowd gathering is not allowed, including like live music or any type of that type of thing. So, so I think we're looking more for like outdoor recreation opportunities that include 12 people or small, you know, stuff, things like that. You can't rent out picnic tables. You cannot rent out, you know, any facilities. You can't have events. So I think it is important long-term. Sorry, go ahead, Dave.
Oh, no, you go. I'm raising my hand after you.
No, I was just gonna say, I think it is important long-term to keep this group and the chamber involved, because the chamber does yes, the town does great events, and the chamber does one of the best things downtown, which are the Saturday night movies. And when we return to, well, I won't know that I don't want to say we'll return to normal times, but when things change again, that hopefully we'll be able to have the chamber and have this group be involved, because that's one of the best group efforts, and they help with the Christmas tree lighting, and so does this group. And so those are my comments.
Thank you, Danielle. Dave, you had a comment?
Yeah, I have to jump off, but I did want to respond to something I saw in the Q&A. It's from Richard Berkson. I didn't see his hand raised. He's wondering if that's working, but he asked about the, I don't know if it fits into this discussion, but about the town's business license system. We have a very archaic business license product that doesn't allow for, you know, use of a kind of a two-way thing where we could take in, we did a lot of work around to get the email list that we use now, but he's asking about the integrated system. And, you know, the short answer is, yeah, we have it priced out. We know what we want, but we were hit with this gigantic, you know, kind of budget reduction situation this year. So it fell to the wayside along with many other things, because we had to cut almost $1 million out of our budget. So it is on the list. If things come back like they hope they will, that's something that is of very high importance to all of us, is to not only for the data it allows us to use, but for the ease that it will provide to the businesses in getting their license. So that is certainly on the list. And Richard, there's your answer. And I'm going to have to take my leave. Thank you, Jessica. Great. Oh, Jamie, do you have
Very quick, I
thank
shouldn't
you.
have made fun of the event. I wanted
just,
to say that the events are still really valuable. And Danielle, to your point, we actually should be doing virtual events. And like I'm getting SBA meetings from San Rafael about like PPP loans, which is so over for local businesses. But we should be hosting how do we do business today type events, and like things like Pat Townsley's Wednesday morning meet and greet for local things. These are things that as a town, the world has changed. So while we can't do the wine and food festival, maybe we can do a virtual wine tasting with local winemakers. I mean, I'm saying that as the wild card because that's the way the world has gone. There's no tech conferences through 2021 in San Francisco, but there are going to be a lot of conferences.
Yeah.
So that's on us to take note as a small town and say, there will be events and there will be conferences. People will not physically be there. Let's figure out the future together so we can bring people together in new and innovative ways.
So
Yeah,
do
we're
you-
trying to work on a virtual Halloween event because I cannot let it pass without giving the children the opportunity to show off their costumes in some way, shape, or form. So I agree with you.
Yeah.
And clearly I'm
Jamie,
here
what you're
for
recommending-
Christmas. I've got the lay-in
Yeah.
on Santa, so.
I want to shoot you, by the way.
Jamie, just to confirm, what your proposal is that item 7, events and business development, we don't take it off the list and we instead look at exploring virtual events for this. And you know what? I think it's brilliant, Jamie. I think it's a really brilliant idea.
All right, I got to get out. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Dave. So is
Yeah,
everyone
I'm
okay
still
with
on that
adding
committee.
virtual
I'm on that
events
committee and
and keeping
yeah.
it?
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Okay,
Bye, Brian.
Jessica.
hey, Jessica, I think we
Yes.
need to table everything else for the night. We're losing way too many people. And
Yeah,
so
yeah,
for
there's
us to
not-
keep
there's not
going,
enough
I
for
really
it.
think we've gone over a half hour. So I think we
Okay.
should, if we can close the meeting, that would be great.
Okay.
But definitely
All
put me in that committee if we have to fill someone in, and anybody else that wants to be on it, I'm happy to work with anyone on it.
That'd be great. I mean, one of the things that I thought we also need to do is onboard new people so that people know what the committee is about and, you know, just what's been done in an onboarding process. And we can work on this on the next. What I'll do is I'll take all of these ideas and changes and work with Elise on creating a new action plan. And also, Rich, I like your idea of having a separate section so that we're able to track what's been done and what's, you know, pending and that sort of thing, that second column. And what I'll do is I'll update the list according to what we've done. There's still going to be some need for co-leads, you know, assigned, and hopefully we'll have some more people join the committee. I think it would really add a lot having the right people on board, especially with the stakeholder representation. So any questions before we close the meeting? Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jessica.
All right, bye-bye.
Everyone.
Bye.